Imagine creating your own magical fairy garden with miniature herbs, mosses, flowers, and succulents. It's fun and easy. Martha Hook, owner of the Fairy Garden, shows you how. Welcome to Richters Seminars. This video presentation is from a series of free educational seminars on herb and garden topics offered each year at Richters.
I'm going to do most of that stuff. I didn't bring a hands-on do-it-yourself project today, but I am going to talk a little bit more about some do-it-yourself stuff. To start with, I got into fairy gardening quite by accident. I moved down to a little rundown cottage on a lakefront that has a bit up on a bluff, and there's a steep slope garden there. And it had been tiered many years ago, and you could see the bones of something that would have looked quite nice in the old stairs that are rotting and stuff. And I started looking on the internet to look for ideas of what I could grow on this steep slope, and some ideas for what to do with it. And I stumbled across fairy gardens on Pinterest. And it happened that at the time I was taking a course online for website building and marketing, with the idea that I would like to work from home at something, but I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. And when I saw the fairy gardening thing, knowing absolutely nothing about it, it occurred to me that the stuff was small, lightweight, and would be good for an internet business. So I'm a bit of a pretender. So then I started to educate myself on it. Now what I found out was, this was in November 2013, I started looking into it, and I found that in the United States, miniature gardening, it's been called miniature gardening for years, and there's a lady down there who really is the guru of miniature gardening, and her name is Janet Calvo. And she owns a business called Green Thumbs and has a blog, and it's on my resource sheet. And she also is a Canadian girl, and she's in Seattle. And I was looking up some information and statistics on fairy gardening online, and I saw that in the United States, the historical trend was very steady over the last 10 years that they were showing. And then somewhere around 2005, for the search term fairy garden rather than miniature garden, you started to see this line, and it started to come up. And then the next country that had enough searches under that term that it would actually show up was the UK, and then Australia, and then Canada. And Canada was just at that point that it just had enough searches under the term fairy garden that it was starting to show up in Google Trends. So it was a very fortuitous time for me to open a business. And I found it fascinating. I like crafts. I like design. I like decorating and things like that. So there was a lot of things that came all together that I enjoy, and I was able to make this into a hobby and a business at the same time, and I really enjoy it. And the learning curve went from there when I started looking into things that you could do yourself. And we'll get back to that later. But for now, we'll just, of course, miniature gardening is not new. Even within, beyond the United States, there's always been, we're familiar with this, bonsai. And there's several different kinds of gardening traditions in the East that come under different names. And the ones that actually, some of them will have just the tree thing, but some of them quite often have these, sorry about the pictures, some of them aren't very good, but this is, I believe it's pronounced penge gardening. And this one will have the little figurines and stuff like this. And now these were probably, I'm going to say that this is probably about 6 inches, this piece here. So it's old as the hills. This looks almost real, doesn't it? That's a miniature garden. Looks like a courtyard. The miniature garden crowd is very, very concerned about scale. And also the Eastern tradition is more, the emphasis is on the doing rather than the result. Where we tend over here to like our stuff, and we're looking at, oh, isn't that cute, and let's get that, and things like that. With Eastern tradition, it's more of a form of meditation to be, and you're supposed to be present in the moment and that sort of thing, which is not what we do here. But this has been around for thousands and thousands of years. And then we have, now I've brought sort of a house like this as well. I sell these kinds of houses that look more like cottages or English cottages and stuff like that. And then there's more whimsical looking stuff as well that would have houses and things such as that. There's a lot of different styles, and as I said, with the miniature gardeners, they're quite concerned about scale. And when you're doing fairy gardening, when the craze fairy gardening came out, a lot of the product is very all over the place. The company that sells the house for this size will have furniture that size, and you have to be kind of careful with that. So when I get into fairy gardening, I also look around at different places for stuff, including the miniature people that have been around forever that actually build stuff to scale, miniature suppliers and craft shops and stuff. But there's all different kinds, from containers and simple. This is just a small container. That'd probably be about a 3-inch bench. Little thing. Fences are popular. This is some people get into the whole, let's get into the whole backyard, and some people go really nuts. Moss is always fun in the fairy garden. Pathways are almost always homemade, but you can also make them out of stuff. Here's a guy that's really got it going on, eh? It looks like he's got the Rivard Canal or something going on here and everything. Here we are again. Raised. Now this one won a prize. This looks like you're probably at a garden center. This fence back here, let's go with the lamp. This lamp right here is about 1 1/4 inches big. And the idea behind the miniature gardening is that's what they want to do. They want to be able to take a picture of it, and if you were looking at it, you'd think that you were in a full-size garden. Not so much with the fairy gardening. Fairy gardening is a lot more relaxed. And again, really, really simple. That's a picture frame that somebody put in. A little bit of moss, a fence, some plastic flowers. You can do, this is in an old drawer. Now these would be with live plants here. It's always kind of fun with live plants. And I'm just going to go through a few pictures. Did I bring that with me? I have a funny little thing about me. This actually is a wheelbarrow that's made for a miniature garden. So the wheelbarrow is 3 inches. And so the wheelbarrow goes in the miniature garden, and then I put a miniature garden in the wheelbarrow. And I like to put fairy gardens in a fairy garden. It's just a nutty thing I do. That's a little bit of a pond, and these are just some beach pebbles that I glued together and stuff. And that's just one of those little tiny houses and such like you used to see in the old tea things, but way more expensive. People put them in a ball. This is a terrarium that I built one day. With the little, these guys are, I want to point out something there. These guys here, see the little mice sitting on the roof? The tallest one is 3/8 of an inch. That's the mom and the dad and the baby. So that's with the miniature suppliers. I often buy those little things because I call it the wow factor. You've got that other stuff, but you're looking around and then you'll see something just incredibly stupidly small in one of my gardens. And here's succulents are great for fairy gardens. They've built a little mound here. Sorry about these pictures; they're a bit big on here. Now these are real live hobbit homes. This is a full-size home that someone actually lives in the side of the hill. And there's a whole bunch of these on Pinterest and Google Images and stuff. I'm kind of fascinated with them. Another one. And they've got them built right into the side of a hill. See, there's this chimney up there. That's another one. And somebody has a fairy garden on their fingernails. These little things here are put in use for little tiny terrariums and stuff, and They are available through the train crowd, the miniature train crowds. They've got all those different scales. Well, they've got a scale that's like 1 to 144, and that's what they are. This is a homemade item that I just found. It's made from a twig, and they've added some kind of, I think, poly clay face to it, but I'm not sure, and it's made to be a fairy. The do-it-yourself stuff is beautiful. This is a do-it-yourself chair as well, and this is something that is interesting, that you can often find the little wire furniture like this very inexpensive, and this lends itself very well to playing with it in this way. You can take a little bit of beading wire and beads. You can take some wire and twist it, put nail polish on it. You could stick a little bit of fake moss and stuff on it, different things, and make it very fairy-like this. If you go on Etsy, it's probably $45. They charge, and there's another one. Again, it's just a little twig chair someone made, and they've stuck some little bits and pieces of this and that on it and made it look very fairy-like. This was the first fairy house I built. This is a juice bottle, and I took some beach stone, and this is on my blog, by the way. I found I didn't want to stick all those little stones one piece at a time. So what I did was I took a piece of saran wrap, and I put some regular glue on it and made a little smear everywhere, and then I just took the stones and I smushed it. I waited about half an hour, and it would peel up and stay flexible but not fall apart. And then I just wrapped it around the plastic, and that worked really, really well on here. This is an upside down salad bowl from the dollar store, again with just some stones on it. And you can see in spots, this spot right here, I arranged them like they were great big flowers. And then just filled in the rest and put little bits of moss and stuff on it. Little seashells and stuff were all ready. This was just some stuff that my husband dragged up from the lake for me at the bottom of our hill. These pebbles and stuff. Bit of bark from the bark chips that were around the garden. Just stuck that in there. And this is product from the store, the Fairy Garden rock. But you can make those. Painting on rocks in miniature, also a good idea. You can make little houses. You can make little rocks, little welcome rocks and stuff like that. Someone made something out of pots. This is pine cones, maple keys, and an acorn for a fairy. Now these are made from real gourds. I brought one that's kind of a polyresin one here. But real gourds make great fairy houses, and you just dry them out and cut them and take all the stuff out in the spring after they've dried out through the winter. And you can cut holes in them with a little jigsaw, and you can paint them, you can glue things to them, you can do all kinds of things to them. Walnut that somebody's just carved out. You get into this and you start looking at everything a little bit differently. Everywhere you go, you're thinking, what can I do with that? This is just a little pebble mosaic in sand. I love pebble mosaics. This is a Papercrete. I guess I'll get to that a little bit right now. This is a Papercrete pot. This is a Papercrete pot. I'd like you to take these and hand them along. Careful now, it's heavy. It's not heavy. Has anybody here heard of hypertufa?
Yes.
Yeah? This is like hypertufa, except you don't use peat moss in it. What this is you get newspaper. Yeah. Just any leftover, any paper really, but for consistency, we just use newspaper. You tear it up, you soak it in water overnight, you add Portland cement and vermiculite, and you mix it with a paint mixer, and you've got that stuff, and you just take whatever you want and form whatever you want out of it. And it's very light, it's very resilient, so it can be left out in the winter. It's not waterproof. If you want to make it waterproof for indoors, sitting on a table or something, you'd have to seal it. But otherwise, it's perfect for outside, and looks like cement. You can color it by putting paint in it, or you can get dyes that are made for cement, powdered and liquid, to put in them. You can just hand form them. You can do stuff with them over some chicken wire. You can make yourself like just a lumpy looking hobbit house. You can stick stuff in it. You can glue stuff to it. You can saw it. You can drill it. And it's really very, very easy to work with, and it's very clean as well. So, and also with hypertufa, you usually have to let the pots cure for months before you can, because of alkalinity. Something about the newspaper, and especially if you add a bit of latex paint, I mean about 2 ounces, the alkalinity is not a problem with these pots. So I've made them and put plants in them a couple of days later. They're dry, they're ready to go in a few days to a week, so, and no problems with them. So they're really great, and I guess someone here is asking us to do a hands-on and next year for that, so we'll just skip by that. This is a little pond. It's made of glass. That's how it's got the ripples. It's a product I just buy and sell on my store. And then I've put blue gardening, or blue floral sand, sparkly blue floral sand underneath it to give it some color. And we had to add ducks, of course. Here is something a little more formal that I built in an old cement planter that I found around my house. These are homemade. This is real. These are miniature supplies. That's a tin house. And here we go. We've got a fairy garden going here. And then again, as you see, I've got a fairy house garden in the fairy garden over here. And there it is, a little closer. So you can use almost anything. These are buttons. These are from my bum's old button box. Everybody's has one of those, you know, the big jar of buttons. These are poly clay. I'm going to get into that in a minute. And here's just some houses that we have. This is the teapot house. And you can build little things to go in the thing. And they've got a little patio up here to do some stuff. And so I built some little clay flowers to go in there, as you can see. Nothing, I had a little sign and a table and chairs. Now these are built out of this stuff right here. Anybody know about Primo, Sculpey, Fimo, that kind of stuff? Yeah. This is the greatest stuff if you take this up as a hobby. Here's some clay that you can take a look at, because you can do so many little things with it. You can build this furniture I built right here, and the little flowers and the sign all out of this polymer clay, and these little tiny cactus flowers and stuff up here also, including the pots they're in. So you can make a lot of little things for yourself. And here's this house here when it's set up at home. I've got a little, this is just crushed shell that I've used for a garden. And this is actual moss. This is called the Gypsy Wagon. There's this one again at my home. And I've got a little party going. I was getting them ready to have a fairy party, so they've got a lot of little tables there. The canopy. This product. Oh, this was something that was kind of nuts. I thought I needed a shabby chic chandelier that I made out of a fish hook here.
Well, where did you get the candles that you put in there?
I made them out of polymer clay. There's the clay also comes in translucent. So I just made a little translucent candle and stuck a little piece of black wire in it, and the rest of it's just beads and wire and a fish hook. It's about this big. Wire, just twisting wire. You can do some fun things. This doesn't look like much in this picture, but when you see it in a little garden, it's kind of cute. And these little wires here, this is just beading wire, and I meant to bring this with me, but you just take it along. I'm going to try and find something I can do it with. You just take beading wire and you do this to it. And then you put something in there, and you pinch that, and you've got a leaf shape. And then you take a little bit of nail polish, and you just go like that, and it fills it in, and light shows through it. Yeah. The hole has to be small enough. It gets harder as the hole gets bigger. But there's where it would be right there, and you just put nail polish across it, and you can do little flowers and different things with it. There's a little fish bowl. I brought these guys here. This is the fairy versus gnome tic-tac-toe that I made out of clay. There's a little fairy. He's 2 inches. There's a fancy fairy gourd house, 2 inches big. Here's a little set that you'll see on Pinterest and different things too. They have this thing that they do on trees that I really like. Rather than have a fairy house, they will put like a door on a tree and little windows and things, and then a pathway up to it, and put your different flowers around, and it's really cute. This is, again, a little homemade thing, pond. These are just rocks from wherever, the beach, the dollar store, wherever, just glue them together. I put a little bit of blue craft foam on the bottom of it and put a bunch of shells and stuff in it and some liquid water. I don't know if anybody's ever seen liquid solid water. You can buy it at the craft store. You just heat it up in the microwave and then you pour it, and then it goes solid. But it will eventually, especially outside, shrink and deteriorate, or it can melt if it's really hot and stuff. So it's more of an indoor thing, but it's fun to work with. That's just some craft foam and some stick and stuff. I was making a pathway out of just some pebbles and stuff and little bits of moss, and that's what it looks like up close. So, you know, although I sell a lot of stuff online for fairy gardens, I'm very interested in the do-it-yourself. And you buy a pathway, and it's going to be $9 or $12, and this probably was, you know, 50 cents or something worth of materials. So this is my hippy-dippy beach shack. I made the little bead curtains out of clay and stuff, and again, that's nail polish and wire and glitter and stuff. These are clay. This is a pine cone that I took my garden shears to and cut all the little pieces apart. So I just had each little piece. And underneath it all is one of those $2 birdhouses from the dollar store. And if there's a hole in it, you can cut it out so easily on this balsa wood just with a X-Acto knife. You can just take the hole and just slice down from the hole, and you've got a door. And then paint, and this is polymer clay around it here. It doesn't have to be fancy or great, just whatever strikes your fancy. These are the biggest one's about this big. This is miniature terrariums. There's one of those flowers I said where you can that's a little flower that I made by twisting wire and putting nail polish on it. And it needs a thing in the middle, but it doesn't have it. So there's another one. That's about a 3-inch jar. There's a close-up in the terrarium. There's my mini mice. They are so cute. Again, there's a bag of rocks from the dollar store. This is just pebbles here that I made into a chair and a table. But back here I've got a rock wall and an archway. And that was just one of those dollar store bags of rocks from the dollar store and Elmer's glue. And you can make lots of stuff. I've brought this with me here. You can make lots of stuff, and when you get really obsessed, as I said, everything is a fairy house. And I was, as usual at home, we had an open pail of drywall compound. We always seem to have an open pail of drywall compound in our house. And I was going to throw my medicine bottle out, my prescription bottle. And I thought, fairy house. So I just took it and I cut it off and I stuck it in the drywall compound. That's the white stuff. And I just put some pebbles on it, and there was bark chips outside again, stuck those on there. And I know it's nothing fancy, but that's what I say. You get obsessed, everything you do becomes fairy related for a while. And then you come to your senses. These are frames from the dollhouse miniature supplier that I turned into a 3-inch terrarium and then put a fairy garden in it. This is back when I was really obsessed with micro mini stuff. Again, I was saying about the wow factor. These chairs here, that table and chair set is probably about this size. So from the miniature place, we have this stuff here. And as you can see, if this picture was better, you'd be able to see that this thing with the straw and everything, which is about, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch, maybe less, you can even see the rind, like the little sections in this piece of lemon that's on the glass and stuff. So, and here's the Papercrete stuff again. This one here was made in this. That's one of those old porcelain wash tubs. And that's one that I made at a class. You can make houses. This is pretty rough. This was our first try. This was, I didn't bring it, but this one was a nice project. And that's what you do. You just put it in there, you just pat it in. It takes on the shapes of what it's in. And that's about it for that.
Instead of putting it inside, if you put the bowl upside down and put it on the outside, does it still work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it would slide off or whatever. But
You can adjust how thick it is by how much water you put in it and stuff. It's sort of the consistency of if you're making your own hamburgers. And when you pat it, it gets flat. And afterwards, you can sand it and stuff. There's a lot of things you can do with it. But it's sort of that consistency, and it does, if it's sliding, there's probably a problem. But it does need to be, of course, on something that's concave, that the mold that'll pop out of the mold, of course. And let's see, what else did I want to tell you about? I guess that's it. Is there any more questions?
you pop it out of the mold.
When you're making it, you put oil on the mold, and any oil, cooking oil, doesn't matter what kind, and it comes out fairly easily.
And if you have your fairy gardens outside, how do you protect them from those heavy rains in the summer?
Well, most of the stuff this stuff is made out of polyresin, and it's designed to be outdoors. So most of the stuff is, and but you should still bring it in, nonetheless, in the winter. I would bring it in. But as far as heavy rains and stuff are concerned, that's heavy enough that it wouldn't go anywhere. But what I would do with the stuff that's like this little chair and things, well, first of all, this would get Tic Tac to go on there so that it would stay on there. You know, the Tic Tac stuff that they used to use at school, put your stuff up on the board. Yeah.
But in the containers, does it not like fill up
They get
with
it.
water and drown all the birds?
Oh, if you're in the containers, well, like any container, you've got to have drainage, right? So these have holes drilled in the bottom, so the water drains out. But no, they wouldn't do that. Also, bent wire or floral wire for picking stuff down. A lot of stuff comes with picks on it, product when you buy it, if they're little mushrooms or whatever. They'll have a stick on the bottom of it. So you push it into the ground and it's not going to get around. But on something like this, I'd bend a piece of wire to go over that. Sort of like this, like the floral pins. And put that there. Another idea is, as with these, this is hollow inside. So they can be designed to, if you have little things out, you can just stick them in there if there's going to be some heavy weather or whatever. I find the little tiny stuff is usually used indoors in your containers or close on your porch or something. Not so much out in your main garden. So, I was going to talk about a little bit about that as well. When you're doing your container gardens, one of the things a lot of people will not pay attention to is they'll design from the thing right in front of them, right here. And you should realize that wherever you put it, what part of that is actually going to be viewed if you come through the house this way and from that way and stuff. So you want to turn the pot as you're doing your arrangement and make sure that you're getting a backyard and a front light. I like to bring my houses up a bit so that I have something going on from at least 3 angles. And then there'll just sort of be one that's at the back of something. As far as doing patios and walkways and stuff like that, I find that it works. Things get, as you said, when you're watering, you want to worry about the stuff just getting sunk in and stuff like that. So I usually would put, even if I'm going to put just stepping stones of this sort anywhere, I try to put things on bases quite often. So for where I would put this, I would probably excavate a little area, and I would put a bit of gravel and sand, or sand and gravel, one or the other, whichever way you like, so that when you're watering, it just doesn't sink into everything. So something like that. I don't have a plant in here, but this is a miniature version of what I would do.
Oh, my goodness.
So that this is on, you know.
Yeah.
I made that, isn't that
That's incredible.
crazy? Yes, you can.
I noticed that you had moss and that type of thing, but you didn't have a lot of real flowers and real plants. You
And
made your leaves and you made your flowers, but so
I made the
outside-
ones that were attached to the house sometimes,
So
but
outside on your terrace,
Mhm.
when you mentioning your home, did you plant specific miniature plants all around? Or you-
there are plants that do that, you know, I would say are better than other plants for doing in the garden. Baby's tears are good. Herbs are great because herbs are perfect for fairy gardening. The reason they're perfect for fairy gardening is you're going to be trimming them anyway. And you can trim them, especially rosemary. Here's a rosemary here that you can trim into a tree look. And so you know that your herbs aren't going to be bothered by being trimmed. So you can keep them the size, whatever size you want. And something like this trimmed down or that can make hedges, or you can make it look like a bush, or you can just make it look very airy like this. So they really are, you know, well suited to that. Now, you noticed that I made a lot of little flowers for different areas, and I like to do that. I am not the best gardener, especially indoor. I kill my plants. That's why I do mostly succulents, and that's why you don't see a lot of flowers in mine. But outdoors is a different story. In the outdoor garden, if you're going to be doing fairy gardening in the outdoor gardening, I would think that you would do quite a bit less of this type of thing, really, and more of the houses, maybe the mushrooms, things like that. You don't want a whole lot of really small things that you got to carry in and out and stuff. But again, it's picking your spot as well is a good idea. I tend to put my stuff up around a tree, of course, near a tree, and usually there's some kind of contour away from a tree, so it's kind of up where water's going to drain away from it and not. Now, if you're putting it right in a garden that's been cultivated and stuff, the picture that I showed that showed this in my garden, I think you could see there was an old patio stone of cement about this thick that had the garden chairs on it. Well, there was one of those under the house too. So if I have to, I would, and if I still want it to look like dirt, I would still dig that out, put a patio stone down, put a little bit of dirt over it, then put the house on it. And then if you want that to look like it's, you know, still within in gravel or whatever, if you want it to look totally like it's in a garden and you don't want to see that, you just cover it. And then you might have to rake that a bit when after you water and stuff, rake some dirt back up on it. But I wouldn't just put them right onto a piece of dirt that's been cultivated for a garden. And same with the other stuff that I do. I would put stuff. Another good, if you've got a lot of movement, if you've got very light soil or you've got very sandy soil that drains away and stuff, a good idea is to take a little bit of pipe, just plastic PVC pipe from plumbing hardware store, whatever, and stick that in the ground, and then fill that with sand or with gravel, and then put your item that has a pick on it in that, and just bury that a little bit below the ground so that it's really stable and it doesn't run off down the hill and stuff like that. But you'll think of ways yourself as you start doing it for making sure that everything stays stable in the garden. What else about designing with it? I do recommend that if you are going to put little tiny things there, make some kind of arrangement for putting the little tiny things in something else right there, so that you're not bringing it, or you won't enjoy it. It's going to become a chore for one thing, and the other thing is you're going to take it to the house and lose it. You'll definitely lose this stuff. It's very tiny. So make some kind of little box or something that you can make a homemade garden box that looks like it's for your garden furniture to go in or something, you know. Put your little things in there. Anything else? Yes.
Do you have an idea how to grow moss?
How to grow moss?
Yeah, then
Well, you can harvest.
put it in the garden.
Actually, I sell moss. I purchase it, but you can from a place in the States called Moss Acres, and they harvest sustainably on their own land, which is important to me, and everything it's packaged in is biodegradable, which is important too. And it comes in a little pouch and it's dormant, and you take it home and you submerge it in water for 15 seconds, and that's it. That's all you got to do, and then you put it where you're going to put it. Now, we have moss all around us. If you look, you'll see it in cracks and old pavement and stuff like that, and you can harvest that with a fork and stuff. Make sure it's just common stuff. Don't go into the conservation area. You know, stuff in the parking lot and the cracks is okay, but so you can harvest it that way. Once you have some moss, there's also, if you're doing a large moss product, I also sell a product called Moss Milkshake, and it comes in a carton, like a 2-liter carton of milk. And moss, if you have dried moss, you can actually make this stuff too. You grind it up into a powder, and it has all the moss spores in it, and you mix it with buttermilk. And then you can paint it on stuff, or you can thin it and you can spray it over an area that you want to cover, or between cracks in your patio stones or whatever. So you can make it yourself. This stuff has an agent in it to help it grow a little bit better, I think, but you could do it yourself. People are doing moss this way as well. They'll like paint numbers, but you have to have that sprayed all the time. Moss is a really great thing, by the way, because once it's established, it doesn't require watering. It never requires fertilizing. It's a natural insecticide. It grows in the shade, so it's a really good thing for problem shade areas. And some mosses will take a fair bit of foot traffic, and if not, you can always put some stepping stones made out of papercrete, perhaps. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Can you keep moss growing inside, like if you have a terrarium?
Yes, you can. Again, I'm not the best person for growing things, but you can. And the idea behind moss is that it doesn't have roots like a traditional plant, and it doesn't have a vascular system like a traditional plant. So it doesn't get its nutrients and its water from the soil. It gets its nutrients and its moisture from the air. So the theory is that if you have moss in a terrarium, it will recycle the moisture that is in the air in the terrarium. All that should be required once it's established is to open the terrarium once in a while to let some fresh air in. But you can easily see when it needs a little bit of water, and it's just a spritzer. You just give it a little spray of water.
Does it have like a life cycle where it dies and stuff like that?
If it's in a climate that gets cool, it goes dormant. As the stuff that I buy, another reason why I deal with this Moss Acres, and I'm plugging them because if you want to know about moss, it's a great site. They've got everything you'll ever want to know about moss on there. There's another one called Mountain Moss, but it's in California, so they have a lot of mosses that aren't native to the area. Now, Moss Acres is just north or just south of us in the States, so they have pretty much the same mosses that we're going to find around here, or the ones that we find in northern Ontario, because they're in the mountainous region of Pennsylvania and stuff. So they have the same kind of mosses that would do well here. Forgot what the question is. Oh, does it go dormant? So yes, in the winter it would go dormant. When it gets cold, it goes dormant, and then it just comes back to life in the summer. So this stuff, when you see it, it looks kind of green still, and it doesn't look dead, and it's not falling apart. And then once you soak it, within about 24 hours it starts to green up, and it needs to be sprayed and babied a bit for about 2 weeks, and then after that it should establish, and you shouldn't really have to water moss that's in a terrarium. If it's not in a terrarium, you're going to need to be on it all the time. It would be, I would be hard pressed to keep moss alive indoors if it were not in a terrarium. Yes?
I saw some, they were flower pots of which they had it cut and then another one in and another one in. How do you cut a clay pot without the whole thing cracking?
Now, I haven't tried it myself, but there was two different things going on there. One was a lot of that stuff was added on. It was kind of like a cement little doorway that was stuck on the front of it. I've been told that if you score it as deep as you can with an X-Acto knife in the area that you want to cut and you tap it, that you should be able to get more or less what you want. It's a bit tricky, I imagine. Yes? 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 The buttermilk is just sort of a, I don't know. I kind of know. I think it's because it's got a culture it's got the bacterial culture to make it establish faster and stuff. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yep. I've heard yogurt works too. Same idea because it's got the bacterial cultures. Yeah. Yeah. I think the reason behind the buttermilk, more other than the yogurt, is the thickness, because people like to use it to paint it on old furniture, or to paint it on, like old garden furniture, turn that into a topiary of a thing. Like I have an old metal cafe set without the top on it, and I've been dying to get the moss to grow on that, and things like that. And they'll also do it just on some other structure, or on the roof of a birdhouse, or you can put it anywhere because it's thick enough, and it'll stay. I imagine, but I'm kind of taking a guess there. Yes. Yes, a lot of the miniature suppliers are starting to get some fairy stuff as well from the fairy suppliers, but mostly they have the actual 1/12 scale stuff. Yeah, which is kind of yeah, 1/2 inch scale. Yeah, and that's very small. That's very small. So like a dog would be this big. Right? Those mice are 1/12 scale. What have I got that's 1/12 scale here? These are 1/12 scale. This is 1 inch scale. Meaning that 1 inch is 1 foot. So this is about 1 inch. So a real pair of boots would be about 1 foot big. So where the fairy garden stuff tends to be a little larger than that. So when you're buying from miniatures and you're buying from fairy gardening stuff, you should really pay attention to the size information, actual size information.
So the boot would be what, 1:1?
This is called 1/12, 1 inch.
So that's called 1/12.
1 inch in miniature is equal to 12 inches in real life. So this is about, let's say this is 1 inch, then a real one would be 1 foot big. And 1/2 inch scale is a 1/2 inch would be 6 inches. Like 1 inch would be, 1/2 inch would be 6 inches. No, I'm lying. 124, that's 124. It would be 124. So 1 inch would be 2 feet. Big.
So is there a suggested size though for the outdoor garden?
No, you really, like I was saying, this is a fairly large house for fairy gardening. From among there's a couple bigger than this from the suppliers. This would be a large house. This would be a fairly typical size house, although usually it wouldn't be this way. So if you were buying a gourd house that was this way, that would be a typical size. It would quite often be about 5.5 to 7 inches big when you look at houses online. But yeah, so you have to kind of pay attention to the thing. So as you see, the same company that sells a house this size is selling a fairy this size. Right? So this fairy's not going to go in that door. If that matters to you, you should pay attention. If it doesn't, that's okay. And a lot of people who do this don't care. They don't care if it's all over the place, because that's fine. There's no rules. There's not any fairy gardening competitions as there are with miniature gardening, where it's got to try and be realistic. And the other thing, fairies are known for pilfering, and they pilfer from all sorts of people, including gnomes and trolls and giants. So they've got stuff on all different sizes. That's about it. I thank y'all for coming. And happy fairy gardening, everybody. I hope you'll go and visit my store online. And I have a...
At Richters, it's not just a garden, it's a whole new world. For herb plants, seeds, veggies, and more, visit us at richters.com or call 1-800-668-4372.